Hey, what's up? Welcome back to this new video. This is paper 2-2 of October-November 2021. So once again, for my Mauritian fellas, if you guys want to check out the Mauritian version, there's going to be a link in the description below. Now, with that being said, let's move on to question number 1. So what do we have over here? We have Jasmine buys a family holiday to India. Here has some information about the cost. Now we have flights, hotel, and the total cost, as you can see on the table, right? Now, part 1, in October, Jasmine pays a deposit of 12% of the total cost, so 12% of the total cost. So let's find out what is the amount that she paid for the deposit. It's only 12%, so 12%, which is 12 over 100, times the total cost, so 2250. Obviously, this is paper 2, you can use your calculator. So 12 divided by 100 times 2250. That should be 270. This is the amount she paid for the deposit. Now, she pays the rest of the total cost in December. Find out the amount she pays in December. So basically, the rest will be what? Pretty easy. That will be the cost, which is 2250 minus the deposit. So 2250 minus the answer, that will be 1980. Now, this is obviously one way of solving this question. Now, the other way is also pretty easy. The way to look at this is basically saying that the total cost represents the whole amount, which is 100%. Now, if she pays 12%, which means 100 minus 12%, that will be 88% remaining. So basically, the amount that she will have to pay will be 88% of the total cost is what? So 88 divided by 100 times 2250, and that should also give you the same answer. So your answer will be 1980.00 for money. So again, I will always recommend using this kind of notation when it comes down to money. Correct to 2 decimal place. All right, so let's move on to question part 2. Now, we have to find the ratio of cost of flight and cost of hotel. So cost of flight is this one. So basically, we have to simplify that fraction or ratio. Cost of hotel will be 1550. Again, one trick you guys can use is obviously use division 1 by 1 to see till what we can simplify this. So this and this will go away, and then we can try this 70 over 155. That will give you 14 over 31. So your answer will be, ratio is 14 over 31 for this ratio in its simplest form. Again, you have to show your division. Divided by 5 will be 31 here. That will be 14 over here. Because usually they will want to see how you got your answer. So that's why you have to show in a way you tried something to basically do this question. Now, that is for part 2. Now let's move on to part B. Now we have Jasmine changes $350 into rupees. The exchange rate is $1 to 71.6 rupees. Okay, fair enough. Now the first question we have right away is that, okay, so if $1 is 71.6 rupees, how much is $350? So we will just have to multiply this by 350 to see how much she actually received through exchanging her money. So she will have 25,060 rupees after exchanging her money. Now on the holiday, she spends 19,500. So 19,500 she spends. So how much will she have remaining in her account? That will be, let's find out, 5,560. So that will be the amount that she will have as remaining. Now, she changes the rest back to dollars at the same exchange rate. So same rate is this one. So now she has rupees. She have to change this one back to dollars. So 1 by 1. So pretty easy, you would say. We know that 71.6 rupees is equal to $1. Now, how much is 1 rupee? So 1 rupee is this divided by this to get 1. So this will also have to divide by same thing, so that this can become 1. So 1 rupee is equal to this. Now the goal is to find out how much is this much rupees. So 5560 rupees will be this over here times 5560. and that will be 77.6536. Now your answer will have to be what? It says give your answer correct to the nearest cent. Nearest cent is actually correct to 2 decimal place. So again, you can just memorize this if you guys want to. Nearest cent, the meaning behind this is 2 decimal place. That will be 77.65 for your answer for part B, question number 1. Now let's move on to question part C of this same question number 1. The table shows the number of tourists and the total tourist spending for some countries in 2016. As you can see a table, we have countries China, India, Kenya, Madagascar, and here we have the tourists going to these countries. Okay, part 1. We have to find out how many more tourists went to India than Kenya in 2016. So basically, we would just want to know what is the difference between the number of tourists that went to India and who went to Kenya, right? So let's just do this subtraction. So India will be this one, Kenya is this one. So here we have, so something here is that we have to realize, here we have 10 power 7, here we have 10 power 6. So because of that, we are not able to do subtraction directly. So we have to first change the power to make it become the same. How can you do this? So pretty easy. We just send 1 10 over here. So this multiplied by 10, that will be what? That will be 14.6 times 10 power, change to 6. Then minus this one will be 1.27 times 10 power 6. Now because the powers are the same, now we can do subtraction. So we have 14.6 minus 1.27. So this minus this, that will give you 13.33 times 10 power 6. Now again, we have to provide your answer in standard form, so that will be 1.333 times 10 power 6. That is part 1 of your question. Now for part 2, we have to find the average amount spent per tourist in China in 2016. So how do you find the average amount? You will say it will be the amount spent divided by the number of people. Basically, to find the average amount spent by one person, so we have to find the total amount spent divided by the number of people. So the answer will be the amount spent per person, if that makes sense. This is by definition of what is average. Right, so let's see the answer. Amount spent in China will be this one. So 4.44 times 10 power 10 divided by the number of tourists, which is 5.93 times 10 power 7. So first we can simplify the power. We can just cancel this one. That will be 3 over here. And for the rest, we can have what? That will be 4.44 divided by 5.93. That should be 0.748735 times 10 power 3. Now we can definitely simplify this, moving 3 spaces because we have 10 power 3 right here. So 1, 2, 3. That should be 748.74. Now again, we have to provide the answer correct to the nearest dollar. So that should be 749 as your answer. That will be question part 2. Now for part 3, from 2014 to 2016, the total amount spent by tourists in Madagascar increased by 23.5%. Now we have to find the amount spent by tourists in 2014. So one by one. So we know that. So 2014 we don't know, but 2016 we know the amount. The amount spent in 2016 will be this much, 9.13 times 10 power 5. And here let's call this x because we don't know what is the amount. Now we know it has increased by 23.5%. So one thing we have to know that always is that usually we consider the initial amount, which is right here, to be 100%. Initially, it's always 100%, right? If it's increased by 23.5, you would say right here, this will represent 123.5% of the initial amount. So using a ratio, we can find this value of x. Let me show you guys. So basically now we can say 123.5% is equal to 9.13 times 10 power, this is 5, right? 5. Now, what is 1%? For example, that will be 9.13 times 10 power 5 divided by 123.5%. Now, we care about 100%. So if 1 is that much, to find this, we have to multiply this by 100. That makes sense, right? That will be 9.13 times 10 power 5 divided by 123.5 times 100. And that should give you the amount right here, because that's what we are trying to find. So 9.13 times 10 power 5 divided by 123.5 times 100, that should give you 739,271.25 as your answer. So again here, do we have to provide the answer correct to 3SF? Maybe, maybe not. But I would say we can do so because this is not an exact value. Usually I will go ahead and provide correct to 3SF if you guys want to do so. That should be the value for the amount spent in Madagascar in 2014. And that is your question number 1. Now let's move on to question number 2. So here what do we have? We have a pie chart. Summarizes the ages of people at a science fair. Now, we have pretty much all the information in this pie chart. I don't think we have to find anything really. Part 1, we have to write down. Write down means we have the information already. We just have to look for the correct information. We have to write down the model class. Basically, the model class is the class with the maximum number or maximum frequency, right? So as you can see, who has the largest angle? You can see here we have this one, which is the age 16 to 20 has the largest angle, so they will be their model class. Now for part 2, there were 90 people aged over 30 at the science fair. So basically here over 30, this pie right here represents 90 people. So basically same concept of question number 1. We can safely say 54 degrees represents 90 people. 1 degree represents 90 people divided by 54 degree if you want to. Now, what do we have to find? We have to find the number of people aged from 16 to 20. So 16 to 20 will be 144. So 144 degrees is what? We know 1 is that much. 144 will be this much times 144, right? So let's do this. So 90 divided by 54 times 144, that should be 240 as your answer. So part 2 right here will be 240 right here. Okay. Now let's move on to part B of your questions. So here we have what? We have 250 students entered a science competition. The table summarizes the scores. As you can see, we have scores here and we have frequency. Okay, so there's information in the table below. Part 1, we have to complete the histogram to represent the data above. Now, how do you actually draw one? We need to find this one right here. What is the frequency density of each group? So frequency density is equal to what? Frequency divided by class width. So what is the class width of each group? So pretty easy. You would say class width is the distance here. So 40 minus 0, it is 40. This will be 20. 60 minus 40. 70 minus 60 will be 10. 80 minus 70 will be 10. And 100 minus 80, that will be 20. So these are the class width of each class. Right. Now frequency is right here. We have to find the frequency density of each class. So that will be frequency divided by the class width. That will be 0.9. Divided by 20, that will be 2.4. This will be 6.4. And this will be 6. And this one will be 42 divided by 20. That should be 2.1 for the frequency density. Again, you just have to plot this on the graph. Should I do this for you guys? Maybe not, but okay, whatever, let's do this. So first thing first, look at the class width. So from 0 to 40, that should be 0.9. So 0.9 should be in between right here. Let me use a pen. So it should be somewhere over here. 40, right? This much. Next one will be from 40 to 60. That should be 2.4. So 40 to 60, 2.4 should be over here. All right, here you go. And then we have 60 to 70 should be 6.4, so 6.4 as well. Should be about this value over here, right? And finally, 80 to 100 should be 2.1. So 2.1 should be right in between over here. Here you go. And this is your histogram basically for all these groups. Now let's move on to the next question. So here what do we have? Students who scored 75 or more, so 75 or more, are given a distinction. Okay, cool. So now we basically have to find the amount of students who scored that much marks. So find an estimate, so estimation for the percentage, so percentage from that group who were given this distinction. So let's find out how many people actually were given this amount. So again, the reason why the question was asking for an estimate is because it is quite impossible to find out exactly how many of them scored that much. So this is why they were asking an estimate. So let's find out. For example, right here, we need 75 or more, right? So by observation, you can say that, hey, you know what? 75 is actually somewhere over here. So 70 to 80, 75 will be in between, right? So we can say from 70, we have to go through 75 and then to 80. Now, 75 is exactly in between those numbers. So one thing we can kind of estimate here is that since this whole distance, 70 to 80, we have 60 people, what can you say? How many people can we have on these two sides? Because this is exactly in between, you can say, well, you know what, this could be 30 and this could be 30, right, by estimation. Hence, we will consider 75 and above to 80 will be 30 and this one will be 42. So the number of people scoring more than 75 or equal will be 30 plus 42, that should be 72 students. Okay, so from this, let's find the answer for the percentage. Obviously, we have to take the number of people, 72, divided by the amount times 100. Okay, so 72, that'll be 28.8%. And this is your answer, correct to 3SF. Now let's move on to question number 3. So here we have to complete the table y for this equation. So we have a missing value over here. So we just have to find that value of y for this value of x. So basically replace x by this in the equation. So minus 3 power 3 divided by 2, minus 3 times minus 3, minus 1, that should be minus 5.5. So minus 5.5 will be the value over here. Now for this one, we have to draw the graph between those. So we just have to use a table to draw this graph. So let's plot the points one by one. So first point is minus 3 minus 5.5. So minus 3, 5.5 should be somewhere over here, over in between, right? So it should be somewhere over here. Then we have minus 2, 1. Minus 2, 1 should be over here. Minus 1, 1.5. And then we have 0, minus 1. And then we have 1 minus 3.5. And then we have 2 minus 3. And then we have 3, 3.5 should be right over on this spot. Now we just have to join all the points by a smooth curve. Smooth curve means it should be flowing smoothly, should not have any kind of edges to it. So let me try my best at least. At least in the exams you will have to use a pencil. In that case you can always you can erase and try again over and over again, right? So let me try my best here to see what can I do with this marker, right? So I have something like this. And here you go. This one. This way. Okay, here you go. This will be an estimation of a smooth curve for this equation. As you can see, it should be something like this, approximately like this. It is not perfect, I guess, but it is what it is. Now let's move on to the questions. Number C. So it tells you here, we have to use the graph that we just draw to explain why this equation has only one solution. Again, this equation right here is quite different from the one that we have previously, but we can use both to see what's happening, right? So what do we need to draw? Now, first thing first here, you can see we have 2 here. Now, to eliminate this 2, we can multiply everyone by 2. You will have, now this will become what? This will become 2y is equal to x power 3 minus 6x minus 2. Now something we can see here clearly is that, hey, this is the same as this, right? Does that make sense? So we can use substitution. So this is equal to 6, which means this is equal to 6 as well. So y is equal to 3. So basically, by solving this equation means we have to draw this line on the graph to see what's happening. So let's do this. Y equal to 3 is what? So obviously we have to show our work here for 4 marks. So we have to show this line. Oh, sorry about that. And you have to label this as y equal to 3. Now you can see this one, it cuts the curve at exactly 1 point, and hence it has only one solution. So you can say the curve, because of the curve and the line y equal to 3, and the curve only intersect at 1 point. And as shown on your graph as well, they can definitely see that's the case for this equation, right? So let's move on to part D now. So the line L passes through the points 1, 1, and minus 2, minus 1. So 1, 1 is what? 1, 1 is over here. And then we have minus 2, minus 1 is right here. So let's join those two and see how does our line looks like. So we have this. Just to confirm, it is actually 1, 1, minus 2, minus 1. So 1, 1, minus 2, minus 1. Should be something like this, right? So we have this. And we can label this. Obviously, that should be the line L as given by the question. So part 1 done. Draw the curve, draw the line. We are good to go. Now part 2, we have to find the gradient. Again, to find the gradient, we have to use the passing 2 points. We use our formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That should be minus 2 over minus 3, which is 2 over 3. So here we'll have 2 over 3 for the gradient of line L. Now for part 3, we have to find the x values of the points where L intersect the curve, this curve, basically the one that we just drawn. So we just have to find the point of intersection. Now again, your values may be a bit different, but you just have to show exactly where your curve cuts. You will be here. Shows to be somewhere over here, and then finally should be this one. Again, it depends on where your curve cuts or where your line cuts the curve. You have to show these x values. So here I have minus 2 according to my graph. That should be minus 0.4, and then that will be 2.8. Again, yours may be a bit different. It depends really on where did your graph intersect. So here we'll have minus 2, minus 0.4, and finally 2.8 according to my graph. That is question number 3. Okay, now let's move on to question number 4. So here are the first 3 patterns in a sequence made from counters. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool, right? Now part 1, we have to find or we have to complete the table in this sequence. Now sequence, obviously they must have some kind of relation with each other, as we can see right here. So pattern number 1, we have 8, 12, 16. So we can clearly see every time we're increasing by the same amount, right? So plus 4, which means if you move here from here will be also plus 4. That should be 20 plus 4 as well. That should be 24. So this is part 1. Now for part 2, we have to find an expression in terms of n for the number of counters in pattern n. So basically, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the question is asking you what's going to happen when it is n over here. So the trick that we use is we can see clearly that every time it is increasing by plus 4, plus 4, plus 4. So let's write down plus 4 and 4 now. Right. We write this down. Now, we know that for the first pattern, we're supposed to get 8. So this is when n is equal to 1. We are supposed to get 8. But let's see what happens here. So when we take 4 times 1, we are getting 4. But 4 is not 8, isn't it? It's not. So how can we make 4 become 8? You would say, well, to make 4 become 8, we have to add 4 to it. So same thing. If you add 4 here, just add 4 here as well, and this will be your expression in terms of n. That will be part 2 of your question. Now let's move on to part 3. Jamal has 150 counters. He uses these counters to make the largest pattern possible. Again, we don't know which pattern he's making, but he wants to make the largest one using these 150 counters. Now we have to find the value of p. So pretty easy as well. So when n equal to p, he will have the largest pattern possible. But we have to know that the number of counters, which is this expression, so 4p plus 4, because now n is p, right? It has to be less or equal to 150 because that's the amount that he has, right? Now let's solve. We have 4p, that should be 150 minus 4, that should be 146. And divide by 4, let's see what happens. That will be 36.5. Again, since the pattern is a whole number, what is the closest number less than this one, 36.5? So less than 36.5, the closest one will be 36. So this will be the maximum, the largest pattern P that he can form with this, 36. Now let's move on to part B of your question. The fourth term is of a different sequence is 26. So let's have a look at this. Let's call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The fourth term is 26. Right. Okay. And this sequence is linear. So linear means your sequence increases by the same amount or decreases by the same amount. Now, for now, let's call this amount A. Right? We don't know. Let's call the difference, okay, let's call this D. So basically, if it's the fifth term, you can say, because it increases by something, let's call this D. And because it is linear, it has to be increasing by the same amount. It will be 26 plus 2D. And this will be 26 plus 3D. And this one should be 26 plus 40. But now, according to the question, the eighth term is 2. So that will be 26 plus 40 is supposed to equal to 2. Let's solve for D now. That should be minus 24. And D should be basically minus 6. So every time when you go in this direction, your sequence is decreasing by 6. Right. Now we have to find the first term. Now you can just use your logic. If you go in this direction, decreasing by 6. But if you go in this direction, has to increase by 6. So 26 plus 6, that will be third term. Plus 6, that will be second term. Plus 6, that should be first term, 44. So 44 will be your first term right here. Now for part 2, we have to find an expression in terms of n for the nth term of this sequence. Again, it's the same logic behind as we have seen in this one right here, right? So use the same logic. Again, let's try one more time together. So as we can see, there's a common difference here of minus 6, and minus 6 keep going on. So what do? We write minus 6 and for now. Now we know when it is the first term, the value is 44. So basically we can say when n is equal to 1, the first term, the value is supposed to be 44. However, here we have when n is equal to 1, the value is minus 6. Now, how can you change minus 6 to become 44? You would say minus 6 plus something plus 50 will be 44. So plus 50 is the value that we need to add. So here we have to bring this here as well for your nth term. Your answer will be 50 minus 6n will be your nth term for this sequence. And that is your question number 4. Okay, now let's move on to question number 5. And let's see what happens here. So the mass of 4 cards and 3 envelopes is 85 grams, and the mass of 2 cards and 5 envelopes is 67 grams. So again, if you guys have done enough questions, you can see this leading to exactly simultaneous questions and equations. So what can we do here is we can first call the cards, let the cards be called X, and let the envelopes be called Y. So you will have 2 equations. So first equation will be what? 4 cards, so 4x, plus 3 envelopes should be 85, right? And then here you will have 2 cards plus 5 envelopes, that should be 67 grams. Now, as you can see, we just have to solve simultaneous equations. So we have 2 methods. One is using substitution, or you can use elimination to find the value of x and y. Now, in this case, I can see, I like to use substitution. I will do that. So I will say that 2x becomes subject. That will be 67 minus 5y. Okay, cool. Now, what do I see now? What do I realize? I realize that 4x. So what is 4x? You can say 4x is actually 2 times 2x. But now we know 2x is also equal to this, right? So we replace. That will be 2 times 2x plus 3y, which is this one, is equal to 85. Right? Let's see what can be done now to simplify this. So 2 times this one, that will be 134 minus 10y plus 3y is equal to 85. That will be minus 7y is equal to 85 minus 134. That should be minus 49. So y will be the value of 7. From here, x will be what? Replace here, you will have 67 minus 5 times 7 divided by 2. That should be 16. X will be your card, so 16, y will be 7, which is the envelope. There you go. That will be part A. And part 2, let's factorize this one. So this should be also pretty easy. So x squared, 25 is 5 squared. So what is the factorization? X minus 5, x plus 5. This comes from the knowledge that we should know. When we have a squared minus b squared, it is simply a plus b times a minus b. Okay, so that's why we know this is correct. The difference of squares. Now for part C, we have to rearrange this one to make t become subject. Okay, so let's try. So first thing first, let's try to cross multiply. Now again, r, we can also say r is r divided by 1. It's the same thing, right? So then we can cross multiply. So r times this will be rt minus 5r equal to 2t. Now send all the t to one side, you will have rt minus 2t is equal to 5r. This one will be 5r over here. Now factorize the t outside, you will have r minus 2 here, and then 5r right here. So t in the end, you will have 5r divided by r minus 2. This is your answer for part C of question 5. Now let's move on to part D of your question. So here we have expressed this thing as a single fraction in its simplest form. So the first thing we realize here is they have different bases, so we have to make them become the same. And the one way we can do this is we can just first cross multiply and multiply them together. So basically doing this, cross, and then this. So cross multiply and then multiply them by each other. So you will have what? You will have 4 times this. Here we have minus 3 times this one. And then divide by this times this. Alright, now simplify, so 2, that will be 8x plus 4 minus 3x plus 15 over this one. Okay, and that should be what? So 8 minus 5 should be 5x. This is 4 plus 15, that should be 19. And over the same thing. Now, if you want to expand this, you can also do that, but it is not necessary to earn your 3 marks. It is up to you. If you want to do that as well, you can also do that. Okay, now let's move on to the next question, which is question number 6. So here we have what? Asma has this sphere 8-sided spinner. Again, what are the possible outcomes? You can see we can have 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, and then 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible outcomes, which are these according to this spinner. Now, she spins the spinner once, only one time. We have to find the chance the score is 6. So for the score to be 6, as you can see from the 8 available outcome, we have only 1 6. So that will be 1 over 8. It is not a 2. In these possible outcomes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers which are not 2, so 5 over 8, right? Now for part 2, as someone spins the spinner twice, we have to find the chance the scores 2 2s. Pretty easy. As you can see, we have 3 2s, so the first time that should be, we have 3 possible options over 8. First spin and second spin will be the same thing, right? That should be 9 over 64. Okay, that should be your answer. So let's double check using our calculators just to make sure that we don't make any stupid mistake. Okay, cool. Now for part B, Leon has 7 red counters, 6 green ones, and 3 white ones. Now he takes 2 at random without replacement. Again, this is the key word right here. To know that it is without replacement, we have to remove 1 as we go, right? After picking 1, we have to remove 1 as we move on to the next pick. Now, we have to find the chance that the 2 counters are the same color. So, same color, he can get red and red, or can get green and green, or can get white and white, right? Okay, so now what can we do now? So so we have red and red. So we have, in total, we have 7 plus 6 plus 3. So 7 plus 6 plus 3, that should be 16 counters in total. So red and red, that will be, first pick will be 7 red over 16. Red again, because we have taken 1 away and without replacement, the next pick will have 6 red over 15, right? Or means plus. Green and green, green we have 6 at first, 6 over 16. Now since we took 1 green already, we will only have 5 remaining over 15. Or white, we have 3 white, so 3 over 16 times, and then we have 2 over 15. So let's try this. 7 over 16 times 6 over 15 plus 6 over 16 times 5 over 15 plus 3 over 16 times 2 over 15. That should be 13 over 40 as your answer for part B of your question. Okay, now let's move on to question number 7. So P is a point of minus 5, 2. Q is a point 37. QR is given to you by this direction, which is minus 4, 6. So we have to find the point, the midpoint of PQ. So again, you have to use your formula here for the midpoint. So midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2, so minus 5. Plus 3, that should be minus 2 divided by 2, that should be minus 1. So x1 plus x2, so 2 plus 7 is 9 divided by 2, that should be 4.5. So this is your midpoint, minus 1 and 4.5. Now for part 2, we have to find the point R. Again, to find the point R, we have to use this vector right here. So by definition, we have to know by now at least QR is equal to OR minus OQ. So OQ, not QQ, OQ. Okay, so now we know this is minus 4, 6. We don't know OR. Again, coordinates of R is basically OR minus OQ given to you by the point right here, which is 3, 7. So from here we can see that OR have to be what? Have to be minus 4, 6. Then this over here you will have plus 3, 7. And that should be minus 1, 13 as your point R. Now let's move on to part 3. We have to find the magnitude of this vector right here. So also pretty simple. We have to use the formula, which is square root of square the first one. So minus 4 squared is 16. 6 squared is 36. So you have square root of what? That should be 16 plus 36. That will be 52. Okay? That will be 7.21 will be the magnitude of this vector right here. Now let's move on to part B of the question. So here we have OACD is a quad. Quad means it is a four-sided shape, and N is the point on AB, as you can see. N is right here, right? Now we have OA is equal to A. OA is this direction, it is A, and OB is this direction, which is B right here, you can see. And then we have some information here, which is OA is 2 times BC. So if OA is A, BC is half A, right? Makes sense. It is 2 times, so basically BC will be half of OA. Now, the ratio of BN and NA is 1 to 3. This is 1, 2, 3. Cool. Now, what else? So here we have to find in terms of A and B. AB. Pretty easy. How can you move from A to B? So by observation, you can see we can move from A to O and O to B. So AB will be A going to O and plus O going to B. So now we have to understand if OA is in this direction, AO will be in the opposite direction. That should be minus A. Plus OB will be this way, so B. So your answer will be B minus A as AB. Now find NC. NC will be this. Now by observation you can see NC, how can you move from N to C? You would say from N to C you can move from N to B and then from B to C. Now what is NB? This one, right? So NB you can see by ratio, you can see this whole thing right here. If this is 1, this is 3, the whole thing has to be 4. And BN is basically, the ratio is 1 over 4. So 1 over 4 of the whole thing is this one, which is AB. AB is this one, B minus A. Plus BC, BC is half A as we have seen over here, right? Now just simplify, you will have half 1/4 B minus 1/4 A plus half A. That should be what? 1/4 B plus 1/4 A. The answer will be 1/4 A plus 1/4 B. Okay, cool. That is question part 7. Okay, let me just wipe the table. It's slippery today. Let's move on to question number 8. So here we have the volume of a cone, 1/3 pi r square h, and the curved surface area of the cone, which is pi r L. Okay, cool. So the diagram shows a paper cup in the shape of a cone, right here, okay? The diameter of the top is 7 centimeters. So from here we can realize that if diameter is 7, which means the radius have to be half, which is 3.5. So radius is this to this one, the radius. Now, why do we need to find the radius? Because as you can see, all the formulas, they include radius but not diameter. So we just have to know this to use the formulas, right? So that is part 1, and part 2 is the volume of the cup is this much. The volume is equal to 110. How do you find the volume? Using this formula, which is 1/3 pi r square is 3.5 square h is 110. Right. So 1/3 times pi times 3.5 square is this much. So 110 divided by answer should be this much. So h will have to be 8.5748. So I guess correct to 2 decimal place should be 8.57, shown as required. Obviously you will do this work in this space right here to show your work right here. That will be part A of your question. And for part B, we have to find the length, the height L of the cup. Now to find the height is also not too bad. As you can see, this is the radius, which means this is also the radius, right? This distance right here, and this will be 3.5 as we have seen before. Now the height was found to be 8.5748. So here we can see clearly we have a right angle triangle. So to find this one right here, we can simply use the Pythagoras theorem. So the slant height square have to be the radius square plus 8.5748 square. So L square will be what? Plus 8.5748 square. That should be, L will be 9.26159. So obviously correct to 3SF, that should be 9.26 as your answer for this length height. Now let's move on to part C of this question. So here we have the cup is cut along the line of OA. Okay, as you can see, OA was the slant height. Again, we know the slant height is equal to 9.2615. So the slant height is, it was cut. So basically this became this right now. And what else? So it is open into a sector of a circle with center O and angle X. So we have to find the value of this angle X. So we can use the formula given to us right here. So we have to understand that the curved surface area, when you cut this, when you open this up, it becomes this. So the area of sector is basically the curved surface area. So according to your question, how can you find the curved surface area? Is pi r L. So curved surface area is pi r L, pi times r. The radius now is 9.2615 L. The slant height, sorry, we just have to use the same one. I apologize. I think I mixed the two a little bit. So we have to first find the curved surface area right here, right? Instead of this one, this is the cone, pi r L, so pi 9.2615 is L. The radius is actually 3.5. My apologies. Okay, cool. So 9.2615 times 3.5 times pi. That should be 101.8355. This will be the curved surface area of the cone. But now we understand the curved surface area of the cone is also the same as this area. Now, what is this area? You will say this is the area of a sector, right? How do you find this? Very easy. You will find this by taking the angle over 360 times pi r squared. Angle we don't know, over 360 times pi. Pi is pi. The radius is now 9.2615. Square is supposed to give you the value here, which is 101.836. Now from here we can definitely simplify to find the value of x as needed. So one by one, we will have what? We have 9.2615 square times pi divided by 360, and then 101.836 divided by answer. That should be your answer. X should be 136 degrees, correct to 3SF. Now we can double check. So 136 divided by 360 times pi all square. All square is 9.2615 square. That should be about the same value. Yep, exactly. So that is okay for your answer, 136 degrees for the value of x. Now for part D, what do we have now? So we have a second cup which is similar. Now again, because it is similar, we have to use similarity over here with a volume. So the cup with a volume of 110 centimeter cube, the volume of the second cup is 165. So basically the ratio, so the volume of 1 ratio to the volume of the cup number 2 is 110 to 165. Now let's simplify this. So 110 over 165, to simplify, that should be 2 to 3. This is the ratio of their volume, right? We have to understand volume, it is in terms of centimeters cube. Now we want to compare their diameter. Now how do you measure your diameter? You would say diameter is length. We measure this in centimeters. Now how can you change this to this? We have to apply cubic root to change that to this. So obviously we have to apply also cubic root to these two numbers. This is the ratio of their length. Now we know that the length, the diameters of the first one is 7. According to the question, it is 7, right? So basically we would say, we know by ratio 3 root 2, this is the first one, is equal to 7. Now what is 1 equal to? 1 will be 7 divided by the cubic root of 2. Now we would like to find for this one, so you would say cubic root of 3 will be equal to 7 divided by cubic root of 2 times cubic root of 3. Again, this is a ratio. We have seen a few questions already. How do we use ratio? So again, this is the same concept right here. So just make sure you understand how do we get to this to use this right here. So 7 divided by cubic root of 2 times cubic root of 3. That should be 8.012998. So your answer is correct. Your 3SF should be 8.01. So that will be your question number 8. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. So now we have question number 9, right? Yeah, all right. So here what do we have? So the diagram shows an open box, which means that there's no top. It is open, right? The top is removed from this shape. Now the height is x. Now the width of the box is 5 more than its height, which means the width here is 5 more, so the width will have to be 5 plus x, right? And the length will have to be what? Twice the width. So 2 times this will be 10 plus 2x. So here we just have to write that here. Your width will be 5 plus x and will be 10 plus 2x. Now, question part B. The external surface area of the open box is 210. So basically, if you add all the surface area on the exterior, you will have 210 centimeters square. Now we have to form an equation in x and show it simplifies to this. So how would you find the total surface area for this shape? So one by one. You would say, okay, we have to add this surface. This will be length times width. That will be x, which is this one, right? Times this one will be 10 plus 2x. But again, we have this side and the side in the back. That will be 2. Now plus this side. That will be what? X times 5 plus x, right? Again, we have this side and the side in the back. That will be times 2. And finally, we have this side at the bottom. That will be 10 plus 2x multiplied by 5 plus x. So now we have to simplify all this one by one. So let me write this down here. So if I expand, you will have 20x plus 4x squared plus 10x plus 2x squared. Now plus, obviously expand this one as well. You will have 50 plus 10x plus 10x plus 2x squared, and this is equal to 210 as we have seen by the question. Now we have to simplify, obviously, so this plus this plus this, that will be 8x squared. And this plus this plus this plus this, that will be what? 50x. And finally, we have this remaining right here. That should be plus 50 equal to 210. Simplify. 8x squared plus 50x. Send this over here. You will have 50 minus 210. That will be minus 160. Now divide by 2. Because everyone is even, we can divide by 2, obviously. That should be 4x squared plus 25x minus 80 is equal to 0. And this will be shown as required. Right here, right? So this is part B of the question. Now moving on to part C of the question. So here we have to solve this equation. And the reason why it tells you to show your work and give your answer correct to 2SF, 2 decimal place, is because the answers for x will not be exact values, and we have to use, hence we have to use the formulas, right? So x will be what? X is equal to minus b, that will be minus 25, plus minus b squared, which is 25 squared, minus 4 times a times c. That should be 1905. Now divide by 2a, that should be 8. Okay, cool. So minus 25 plus root of 1905 divided by 8. That should be, x can be 2.33 and x can be what? So minus 25 minus root of 1905 divided by 8. That should be minus 8.58. Correct to 2 decimal place, obviously. So your answer will be minus 8.58 and then 2.33. Let's move on to part D of the question. So here we have to find the volume of the box. Now, again, how do you find volume of a box? You would say volume is length times width times height. So again, volume will be length. Length will be what? Length will be 10 plus 2x. So 10 plus 2 times x will be 2.33 times the width, which is 5 plus x, 5 plus 2.33, and times height, which is simply 2.33, which is x, and that should give you 250. So 250 137, right? Your answer will be just 250. Now let's move on to question part E. The box is filled with chocolates. Now, the mass of the chocolates is 250 grams, correct to the nearest 10 grams. Oh, cool. And the total mass of the box and the chocolates is 262 grams, correct to the nearest gram. When they say this, is basically nearest to the nearest 1 gram. Okay, cool. So now we have to find the lower bound of the mass of the box. Again, you have to understand, to find the mass of the box, the mass of the box is equal to total mass minus the mass of the chocolates. So that's how you find this. But again, the question is asking for the lower bound. So for the lower bound of the mass of the box, you have to take the lower bound of the total minus the maximum, if that makes sense. So basically, if you want to find the minimum amount through subtraction, you gotta take the minimum maximum, so the minimum right here minus the maximum, so you can get the result of a minimum. I hope that makes sense, right? So taking the minimum minus the maximum so that you can have the minimum answer. So let's find out. So for this one, we have to find the lower and upper bound. Take the value measured, which is this one, plus minus the value right here, divided by 2. That will be what? So that will be 255, and that will be 245. And for this one, same thing, 262 plus minus nearest 1 gram divided by 2, that will be 262.5 and then 261.5. So let's find the lower bound. That should be what? The mass, the total mass is this one, so lower bound will be this one, 261.5 minus the maximum of this one should be 255. So let's see, what do we have? That will be 6.5. Okay, so 6.5 will be this one for the lower bound of the mass. That will be question number 9. Let me wipe this down. Let's move on to question number 10. So here we have a question, not the scale. So we have A, B, C, D is a field on a horizontal ground. It is flat on the ground. That's the point that it's trying to make right here. And the bearing of B from A is 70. So bearing of B from A, so this is 70 right here. And the bearing of D from A is 125. So this whole thing is 125, which means this have to be 55. I hope that makes sense. So if this is the 125, this will have to be 55. Now, C is due south of B, right here, and due east of D. So, okay, you can see it forms a right angle triangle as shown by the diagram as well. Now we have a few lengths here, so this and this. Question number 1 is to find the bearing of D from B. So to find the bearing from a point, we have to first draw the north line at that point. This is the north line right here. So what do we have to find? We have to find this angle. So this to the point of D. So this whole thing, right? Now we do realize that to find this whole thing, what can we do? So let's do some work, some math here. So let's continue this line and this line. Now we have to understand that by alternate angles, that this, if this is 70, this also have to be 70. So this whole thing has to be 70, which means if you find this one right here, which is, let's call this alpha, we should be able to find this angle here and hence our answer. So let's first find this angle. So how can you find this? So we can use, because we know this, this, and this, and this, and this. So we can use a sine rule, right? By observation, we can use sine rule. So simply, because we have this side, we have this side. So we have this side, we have the angle right opposite this side. And we have this side, we are trying to find the angle opposite this side. So we can use, if there's only one missing value, we can use this to find the angle here. So basically, the equation relating them will be what? Will be sine of the angle divided by the opposite side should be giving you the value of sine of this angle divided by the opposite side. Now we can solve for the value of alpha, right? So sine of alpha have to be what? We have to send this over here. So sine, that have to be degrees, obviously. So sine of 55 divided by 350 times 290, that should be this. So alpha will be sine inverse, that should be 42.7 degrees. So the angle here, alpha, is 42.7, which means this one right here will be what? Will be 70 minus this. 70 minus 42.7, that should be 27.3. Hence, to find this whole thing, we understand that we have to take 180 plus this one. So your answer will be what? 180 plus 27.3. That should be 207.3. So the bearing, you can write, of course you have to write bearing correct to one decimal place. That's why we can leave that answer as well. So 207.3. Okay, angles usually we write correct to one decimal place. In this case, we can leave the answer as such as 203.3 for that value. Now let's move on to part B of the question. This is the last question, I suppose. A vertical mass is positioned at D. So at D we have a vertical mass. So at the point D right here, there's a vertical mass. Let's draw the mass something like this, like a pole, right? And then it says the angle of elevation of the top from A is 10. So if you were to join this with A, so for example, if I draw this picture, so basically we have the point D here, we have D here, we have A here, we have D here, and we have the pole here. Again, the reason why it is vertical is because D and A are on the ground, they are flat on the ground, and the pole is vertical, so it can be in this direction. This is A, and this is D, and this is 10 according to the question, and this is also 270 right here. So 290, and this is 90 because again it is vertical pole and the points are flat on the ground. That's why it will be 90 degrees to the ground. Now I would say the first thing let's do is let's find the height of the pole. So height, we can use SOHCAHTOA because it is a right angle triangle. So this is the opposite side. This is the A side, we have to use tan. So tan of the angle is equal to opposite side over the A side. So hence solving for H will be what? Send this over here. So that will be 290 tan of 10. That should be 51.135 for the pole. Now what else do we need to find here? So we know this. So here we have to find the angle of elevation of the top of the mass from C. So basically now we have to join this to C. Find this angle right here. So let's draw this. So here we have the point C, point D. We have the pole here. Again, obviously there's many ways of solving this question. There's, I think, at least 2 ways that I can think of. But let me just use, I guess, it is kind of long, but at least it's the comprehensible way, I would say. That will be the point D here and the point C here. And what else do we need to know? This is the angle 90, right? And we have the length of the pole, right? This is 51.135. Now again, we want to find the angle over here. Let's call this theta. So we want to find this angle theta. So how can you find this? Again, we realize that we have only one side that we know right now. We need also to find DC. So how can you find DC? If you look at this picture, what do we have? We have D, B, C as a right angle triangle. This is 350, and this angle here, as we have seen before, it is 27.3. So we can find this one using also SOHCAHTOA, right? So if you know SOHCAHTOA, this is our what side? This is the opposite side, and this is the hypotenuse. We have to use sine. Sine of 27.3, that will be opposite side, we don't know, call it x, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 350. So x will have to be what? Sine of 27.3 times 350. 160.53. So the value of x right here, that will be 160.53. Now, finally, to find this angle, again, we have to use SOHCAHTOA. Here we have this side and this side. So this is the A side, this is the O side again, SOHCAHTOA, right? SOHCAHTOA, here you go. We know this side, this is the A side, and this is the O side. So as you can see here, we have the most bars. We take this one, that will be tan of the angle is supposed to give you the O side, 51.135, over the A side. Hence, theta, tan inverse of this, 51.135 divided by 160.53, tan inverse of that should be 17.7 degrees for your angle of elevation. And this is the last question of this paper. I hope that was somewhat helpful. As always, thank you for watching. I will see you soon.